There is a space most people never notice. A small weightless pause between one heartbeat and the next. It's not silence. It's not sound. It's something older, something deeper. If you listen closely enough, you can almost feel the world stop there. For just an instant, everything holds its breath. And in that pause, you are neither living nor dying. You simply are. Dolga pausa. Most people rush past it. They live inside the noise, the constant hum of movement, the endless ticking of plans, the pulse of wanting, fearing, chasing. But the soul doesn't live in the motion. It lives in the stillness between it, between inhale and exhale, between thought and speech, between birth and the next beginning. That's where you are most yourself, not in what you do, not in what you say, but in that breathless instant where everything disappears. And yet, somehow, you remain. Звук дождя становится ближе. Тихое потрескивание дров. There's a strange peace there, a peace so vast that the mind cannot touch it, because the mind is movement. It needs a pulse to survive. But the soul is the space between pulses. It doesn't need time. It doesn't even need a reason. It only needs presence. And maybe that's why life feels so fragile, because we keep forgetting how to live in the space that holds us. We fill it with worry, with noise, with names. We decorate the silence until we can no longer hear it, but the silence remains. Patient, ancient, waiting for the moment. You grow tired of running from it. Долгая пауза, как дыхание. There comes a time, after the losses, after the striving, after the noise has eaten through your bones, when you start to hear it again. It's faint at first, like the whisper of your own shadow. But it's there, between each heartbeat, between each regret. You realize then that peace was never something to achieve. It was what surrounded you. Every time you stop trying to control the rhythm, because life doesn't need your command. The heart beats on its own. The rain falls without instruction. The world turns without your approval. And in that realization, in that slow surrender, you start to breathe again, not to survive, not to perform, but to be. Дождь за окном усиливается, звук мягкий, как воспоминание. The fire flickers, casting slow shadows across the room. You watch it, how it dances, then rests, then flickers again. Even the flame knows how to pause. Even light knows that to shine forever is to burn out. So it stops, it rests, and in that resting, it renews itself. Maybe the soul is the same. Maybe it isn't dying when it's still. Maybe it's remembering what it was before the movement, before the body, before the world named it alive. There's a quiet truth in that, one that doesn't comfort or frighten. It simply is. The space between heartbeats is not absence. It's eternity, folded into a breath. And when you begin to listen for it, not with your ears, but with your being, the whole world starts to slow. Time becomes softer. Grief becomes lighter. Even loneliness begins to sound like music, because you realize it was never loneliness. It was life whispering. Here, right here, in between everything. That's where you've always been. There is something strange about silence. At first, it feels like nothing, but if you stay long enough, you start to hear what lives beneath it. The silence becomes a mirror, and what it reflects is not what the world sees, but what remains when the world is gone. Most people cannot look into it for long. They see their reflection and mistake it for loneliness. They turn away too soon, before the stillness begins to speak. But if you stay, if you sit with it as you would with an old friend, you begin to see the fragments, faces, moments, names, all drifting like dust in sunlight. You see who you were, who you tried to become, and who was quietly waiting beneath it all. Долгая пауза, только дыхание. There was a time you believed that growth meant adding more meaning, more strength, more light. But here, in the quiet between the beats, you see that growth is not addition. It is subtraction, not building yourself, But returning to what was never broken, the silence shows you how much of your life was noise, the constant explanations, the invisible rehearsals, the desperate effort to be something certain. And now, none of that seems necessary, because the heart doesn't need you to explain it. It only needs you to listen to the pauses between its rhythms. Plamя чуть утихает, слышен ветер снаружи. The older you get, the more you begin to feel time differently. It stops being linear. It folds. It breathes. And suddenly, moments that once felt far away start to hum inside you again. You remember the first time you felt alive, the first time you loved, the first time you realized that even the most beautiful things can fade without cruelty. And in that remembering, you understand none of it was wasted, not a single ache, not a single goodbye, because everything that has ever passed through you has shaped the space you are sitting in now. You can feel it, the echoes of people and places, woven into the rhythm of your pulse. Their presence doesn't hurt anymore. It's softer now, like the warmth of a flame that has already burned itself into the air. Короткая пауза. You start to see that silence isn't empty. It's full of everything you once were too loud to notice. There's forgiveness in that fullness, not the forgiveness that asks for words, but the kind that grows from understanding how small and temporary we all are. You forgive not because you decide to, but because there is no one left to blame. The story has run its course, and you are no longer the character. You are the page itself. Звук дождя ровный, как сердце. Maybe that's what the space between heartbeats truly is. A reminder that even life is made of interruptions, that even continuity depends on pause. Without the stillness, there will be no rhythm at all. You start to understand that loss is not the opposite of love. It's part of its breathing. Love inhales, and love exhales. And when it exhales, it sounds a lot like silence. You smile faintly, not out of joy, but out of peace, out of knowing that the quiet isn't against you. It's for you. It always was. In that space, you no longer search for meaning. You no longer measure time. You simply rest. In the heartbeat of the world, there comes a night when you stop listening for the next sound, when even the silence feels like a companion, not the absence of something, but the presence of everything that was ever here. It's then that you finally understand. The space between heartbeats is not a pause in life. It is life in its purest form. For so long, you believed that the beat was what mattered, the rise, the sound, the proof of living. But the soul was never in the sound. It was in the stillness that allowed the sound to exist. Every note needs silence to be heard. Every word needs quiet to be understood. Every life needs pause to remember itself. Pause. You watch the fire as it leans into its final embers. It no longer reaches upward. It glows inward, as if it too has grown tired of trying to be seen. There is beauty in that, the beauty of things that no longer need to prove their light. You begin to realize that peace is not the reward for endurance. It's the truth that was hidden beneath the noise of endurance itself. The rain slows to a whisper. The fire hums like a heartbeat. And somewhere in the space between them, you can feel yourself breathing, not as a body, but as a rhythm within the greater whole. You are not apart from this silence. You are what it's made of. Soft exhale. All your life you've tried to keep the rhythm going, to stay ahead of loss, to outpace time, to hold love long enough that it wouldn't slip away. But now, you see that everything was already part of the same pulse. The beginning, the ending, the ache, the grace, they all move to one quiet tempo that never truly changes. And the pauses, the still points, the spaces between each beat, they are not mistakes. They are the music itself. Pause, the voice lowers. Maybe that's what forgiveness really is. Not an act of will, but the soft acceptance that everything happened exactly when it had to, and then stopped. You start to feel how the heart moves on its own, how it never asks for permission, how it doesn't consult your mind before it stops and starts again. You realize that your entire existence is built on these tiny invisible pauses. 1,000 deaths, 1,000 resurrections, every minute. And somehow you survive them all. Rain picks up again, gentle, steady. The world outside feels different now. You no longer want to control its rhythm. You simply want to feel it move through you. You close your eyes, and the heartbeat inside you becomes distant, like footsteps in another room. But the space between them, that still infinite expanse, feels closer than ever. You could live there. You have lived there. You just forgot. And now you remember, the same way a wave remembers the sea, the same way breath remembers wind, the same way light remembers the dark it was born from. Pause. You realize there was never a beginning, never an ending, only the quiet pulse that holds them both. And you smile, not from joy, but from knowing that you don't need to make peace anymore. You are peace. The body will grow tired. The heart will slow. The fire will fade. But what you are, the space between all of it, that remains untouched. It doesn't belong to time. It doesn't belong to form. It is the gentle watcher, behind every rise and fall. And now, you no longer fear the stillness. You no longer rush to fill it. You let it hold you the way the night holds the stars. Soft silence, only the rain. And when the final beat comes, as it always does, you will not resist it, because by then, you'll know the truth. The space between heartbeats was never between anything at all. It was everything. The soundless song you've been hearing all your life. Long pause, the fire sighs. You whisper to no one, or maybe to everything. I am here. And for the first time, you feel what that really means. Not being, not becoming, not surviving, but simply existing in the infinite space between one heartbeat and the next,